Alright, so we have one championship to go in the summer stretch playthrough of this game that I ultimately planned. And now, I think it's time for us to go and buy ourselves a new car, because we have the money to do so. And I drove nearly 140 miles in this thing. So basically, I have thought about this for a bit, and I have decided that for this, I'm going to buy myself a new car. And I am also going to do something that almost nobody else has thought about doing for the Polyphony Digital Cup. And also because, well, I just want to use one of the Volvos before the end of this game. So that's why we're heading over there, and we are going to use this. The Volvo S60. Not only because it's a reasonably priced car, but also because I reckon with the right upgrades this can be a reasonably fast car. So that's what we're using. And as for the colour, well, I'm not entirely sure about that, even though I won't be using red. And well, these shades of blue, I think they're a little too dark for me, so yeah, let's buy this thing in green. Green actually doesn't look too bad on this car, so we're doing that. Buying the Volvo S60 T5 Sport from 2003 in Mistral Green Metallic, or Mistral, I should say. Anyway, that's the car we're using for the Polyphony Digital Cup. Because I am cool like that, and also because I like to give diversity to the cars I use. So first of all, I'm going to put on the Stage 1 Turbo because I reckon the best car in the field we'll be up against will probably have around 300 horsepower. I don't think we're going to go up against any supercars, so just putting both those on because we may need those. And I will also put on a set of racing brakes as well, just to see if it gets me through the corners. And I think what we also need is, yeah, I think that should do it. Of course I will put on a little bit more tuning whilst I'm at it. So first of all, we're going to put on the racing chip. Puts me up to 311 horsepower, which is about where I need to be. And yeah, we'll do the port polish as well, just because it gives me a reasonable horsepower boost. And also gonna put on the Sport Hard tyres, because we may need those, even though tyre wear isn't really going to be too much of an issue for this, but I'm fitting it anyway. And how heavy is this thing? Yeah, we need to drop some weight, and I'm going to do that right now by doing stages 1 and 2 in weight reduction. Yeah, I'll do that as well. Just because I need this thing to be lighter in order to get through the corners, and also to not put as much stress on the tyres. And I think what I'll also do with this thing... Okay, we can't do the drive shaft. So... sure, we'll do the racing flywheel. Just so it gives me a little more acceleration boost. And hopefully that should be everything we need for this. Or if it isn't, then I will just have to come back and try this again. Okay. Let's head over to our third championship of the Extreme event. Also our last championship of the summer stretch. So once again, 400,000 credits is the maximum we can win. We are starting at Twin Ring Motegi and then ending at Nürburgring. Even everyday cars can look tough. This is a high-level series of races that attracts the best drivers. And it looks like we've got the same competition as what we had before. So we've got the Turismo Fairlady Z, the Peugeot 206, the Honda Jazz, the Fiat Barcata, and the Mazda RX-7 FC. And before we do anything else, I think I should probably qualify just to see how well we do for this. This will probably be the only time I do qualifying in this thing, but I just want to make sure that I have the pace. I think I do have the pace with this thing, but I know there are going to be certain races that will be harder than others, so I just want to make sure I'm ready for those. Yep, 5 seconds. Yeah, I am strongly convinced in saying we don't need the turbo for this first race. The way things are looking. It's pretty much panned out the way I thought it was going to pan out with those upgrades I put on. So, I will take off the turbo kit because it's probably not needed for this first race. And also gonna take the traction control off along with everything else. Don't need any of that. And I think we should be okay for this. I know a lot of you would consider it to be unusual to watch me using a Volvo for this. But it's only because, well, there's hardly any playthroughs when anyone actually has used one of the two Volvos in this game. I figured I would be the exception. And what's it looking like? Oh, only 6 points. Okay, so I get the impression this is probably going to be pretty easy. And I have already driven 6 miles in this thing. Although I do reckon my car should be fast enough to hold off that Turismo Fairlady. The way I see things. I am also going to have to get used to the understeer. We'll see how we do, but I think we should be okay for this first race. Once we really get going. And yes, I have also turned all the driving aids off because I don't need them. All I have to do now is just make sure that I hold off the Turismo Fairlady. Because I know there are going to be certain races where he will be faster than me. So in other words, this race is basically all about the start. And all I really have to do is just hold on to the lead, basically. It's going to be a close one, but I think I should be able to manage. As long as I don't spin my front tyres too much. I think I should be able to compensate. Although I probably should have done the stage 3 weight reduction, because then my front tyres would not be getting shredded as much. I can definitely tell when this thing likes to understeer a lot, because most of the wear seems to be on the fronts rather than the rears. I also figured that when I was doing 130 down the straight, I knew my car was going to be good. Plus, can you really think of anyone else on YouTube who would really think about using a Volvo for an event as big as this one? Because, well, I sure as hell can't. Because most other people would basically use either a Japanese car or some sort of supercar, depending on the competition. But it's pretty clear to say that both myself and the Turismo Fair Lady, we're very much the class of the field here, the way things are looking at the moment. And I think with the right upgrades I actually did make a good choice by choosing the Volvo. I mean, personally, I made this choice just because I wanted to, and also because, well, I generally like Volvos. I definitely feel like, up to this point of the playthrough, I have made it my goal to make it so I can diversify my picks for these events as much as I can. And this is just another one of those examples. And I also chose green because, well, this thing actually looks pretty good in green. And thus that is my reason for choosing green. It is also nice to get a bit of diversity among the colour choices as well, because we are technically racing in a field that has 5 different colours on the board, which I think is actually pretty nice. Because it shows that we are basically showing our true colours. As my throat is starting to go away again. I honestly am intrigued to see how this thing will do around Nürburgring. And I'm especially intrigued to see just how this thing will do around Le Mans as well, where the Turismo will almost certainly have some sort of advantage. And sipping from my water again, because I need it. And as long as I keep this thing in 3rd gear for most of these corners, I think I should be able to do alright for myself. The way things are looking, as I am steadily pulling away from the Turismo. There's honestly no one else in sight, aside from us two. So I think at this point, we're very much in a class of our own. A lot like we were in the Dream Car Championship, when I was driving my GT and I was also up against, well, the Zonda, if you will. I seem to be managing my tyre wear alright at the moment. Which is honestly something I was not expecting at this point. Although I can certainly say those weight reduction upgrades did help me to put up a fight. against the Nismo Fair Lady, because he is not letting me go. I reckon we're going to have our fair share of battles and duels for this championship, similar to what I had with the Zonda last time out. I reckon this is probably going to be something similar to that, from what I can see. Anyway, we're halfway through the first race, and I am continuing to hold my advantage. He seems to keep taking a few tenths off me here and there, but when it comes to just the outright pace, he's not really seeming to get close enough to really mount a challenge. Oh, and I think he's about to do that, as I just ran wide. But he does keep it clean. He doesn't run into me, as I was able to block him. And I think at this point, this has been a pretty intriguing battle between the two of us. I mean, I am managing to pretty much hold serve, but at the same time, the Fair Lady is not letting me walk away with this. He is really keeping up with me. I think I might consider qualifying before every race just to make sure that if I do have a shot at beating him, I make sure to use my shots of beating him. Figured I would just say that right away. But yeah, he's definitely keeping me honest. This has definitely been one of those ding-dong battles where I've definitely had to make sure that I can hold on to my lead in this thing, in spite of me having a weight disadvantage. I mean, this thing still weighs over 1,300 kilos. I have dropped a bit of weight, but I've not dropped so much weight to the point where I'm just simply gonna beat that Nismo straight up, because I really don't think that's gonna happen. So, in short, yes, I am basically gonna qualify before every race in the Polyphony Digital Cup, just because I want to check and see where I will be faster than the Nismo and vice versa. Because I am pretty sure at this point that I am not going to beat him in every race unless I manage to conjure together some sort of strategy that works. We're very much going to be trading paint with each other. That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, I did do a qualifying session with my Volvo 240 to see if that would maybe hold a candlestick. And whilst it is able to beat the rest of the field easily, the Nismo, however, yeah, there was honestly not a chance in hell that thing was gonna fucking beat the Nismo Fair Lady. But anyway, one lap to go here at Motegi, and then once we're done with that, we can then move on to Seattle for race 2. As I set a new best lap time of a 2:16.8. And now it is one more lap to go around the ups and downs of Twin Ring Motegi. We are very much reaching the flag. So, 1 second is the gap to the Fair Lady. I am going to hold serve in race 1, but it depends on knowing if I can do something similar for the other races. That's probably the second and only other time you're really going to see me qualifying. Because as soon as we're done with this, the other championships we do, well, most of them are going to be pretty easy. With the one-make events. But I will say, this thing has got some very long gears. Basically, with those gears being 3rd gear and 4th gear. They are pretty long, I'm not gonna lie. They definitely stretch their legs when it comes to the gear ratios. But either way, in my green Volvo S60, I am going to narrowly miss overlapping the Fiat and the Honda Jazz, but I am going to outduel the Turismo Fair Lady at Motegi and score 6 points. That was a really close race. I did not think I was going to beat the Fair Lady without the turbo, but somehow I did. So the Mazda 3rd, Peugeot 4th, Honda 5th, and Fiat in 6th. Was not expecting myself to win that race, but here we are. So another 20 grand is ours, and I win the first round of the Volvo Turismo Fair Lady Duel. And because I have not saved a replay at Motegi for a while, I might as well save it here. Because why the hell not? And so there we go. Race 1 is done, and now we will move on to race 2. Alright, so one race is down, and after taking a brief little break to get myself some food and also to pretty much refocus myself, we are now getting on with race 2 of the Polyphony Digital Cup, and where I wonder if it's actually worth it to risk without the turbo for this one. You know what, let's do it. I only qualified once. I don't think it's going to be too hard for me to work my way through the field. I think I should be able to figure this out. But I think at this point, it just depends on whether or not I can manage to get enough pace to potentially work my way up to second quickly enough so that I can manage to catch up to the Turismo later on, since we are doing 7 laps around here compared to 6 before. And the gap is already 4 seconds, so there's a likely possibility that says, unless I can really nail my corner entries and exits, there is a good chance I might not beat the Fair Lady. And this will probably be a very lonely ride in second. But again, I did make sure to put on the racing brakes along with a sports suspension so I could get slightly better cornering. I'm not sure if I will or won't be able to close the gap, but there are definitely certain places where... Oh, I am closing the gap. Okay. But I know that there are certain places where I won't have the advantage over the Fair Lady. But thankfully, however, this is not one of those cases. So I think at this point, we should be doing okay, from what I can see. And the gap is now just 1 second, so I get the feeling my car is definitely better through the corners than Turismo is. I thought for sure I might be in panic mode for this, but thankfully, however, that's not proven to be the case so far. I mean, I did win in a close fought battle with the Turismo Fair Lady, where I simply outdueled him. But at this point, it seems to be going alright for now. And waiting to see what happens next. And just lifting off the throttle. Looks as though this probably is going to wind up being similar to what happened in Seattle, where the Turismo is able to pretty much... similar to what happened last time out at Motegi, where I would imagine the Fair Lady is either going to stay close to me, or he is simply just going to drop by a few tenths per lap. And that's basically going to allow me to pretty much walk away with the W. And I think at this point there's a very good possibility that says this is a win I do walk away with. So I think we're in a good position for now, as the gap is already 3 seconds. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens next. I mean, I have taken the lead. It just depends on knowing if I can manage to fucking hold on long enough to really make sure that my win stands. I also noticed this thing has pretty low RPMs as well, as it only revs up to about 6,000 RPM before you hit the red zone. And it looks as though at this time, like, we are definitely waiting to see what happens next. So 3.1 seconds is now the gap. Probably should have upshifted sooner. I can understand why the bumps are giving me understeer because, well, the front tyres do seem to be taking up most of the wear. And I would say at this point, it looks like we are very much pulling away. The way things are looking at the moment. Is a possible 4 in a row sweep on the cards, maybe? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I think I'll probably take it up to there, and then afterwards I will pretty much just call it a day as soon as I get to the end of race 4, because compared to doing these lengths of races with race cars, sports cars under the circumstances are not as quick. And at this time, it looks like we are very much in a position where it looks as though something is going to give. And I think at this point, the Turismo is very much giving in to me. Because I am setting consistent sub 2 minute times. I would imagine he's probably setting around, I would guess, 156s or something. I'm basically just eking out a few tenths per lap. And since this thing has low RPMs, there isn't really the need to worry about us really coaxing all that much, because this thing only has about 6,000 RPM. And at this time, I would say we're doing pretty well. I'm also pretty sure that because this thing has a T in the title, this thing is definitely a turbo. But either way, I simply chose the Volvo because, well, I figured nobody else has done it. And also because, well, in general, I just want to use a Volvo before I finish this game. It may not be the 240 GLT estate, but it is still a pretty good choice either way, if you have the right upgrades, which thankfully I do. It's also because, well, I've not seen the Volvo really make any appearances in any of the events up to this point of the game. And up until now, that actually saddened me, but this time around, it actually seems to be a pretty decent choice from what I can see. So, Okay, well, lost a few tenths on that lap, but it seems to be fine because at this point my car is still very much proving to be the benefactor. And so we have one lap to go after this one, as I lift off the throttle to prevent understeer through that sharp right turn. And okay. And still continuing to set the pace. Also, I just noticed my best lap time is currently a 1:54 point nice. Before it either stays or goes away. I figured I'd just tell you that, and it looks like it's going away. As we get rid of the nice lap by going a second up and setting a 1:53.42. I'm definitely going to overlap someone before this race is done. That's pretty much a guaranteed virtue at this point, because of how much faster I am compared to most of the pack. I highly doubt I'm going to lose my shot of overlapping the Honda Jazz at this point. And that's precisely what I do. The Honda Jazz has now been overlapped, and now we can set our sights on taking the checkered flag. And so, and that's a wall. So we now overlap the Fiat Barchetta, and now that's pretty much the only two cars I am going to overlap for this whole race, basically, because, well, I think the Peugeot is a bit too far up the road for me to overlap him. But, either way, I can at least say 4 of us will finish the race, because I overlapped 2 of them. And also because up until recently, the fair lady just dropped behind me in terms of pace. But there we go. 13 minutes and 23 seconds later, and I win race 2. As the Honda Jazz just manages to finish 1 lap down before the fade. So we have got a battle for 5th. Meanwhile, everyone else is pretty much just holding steady at the moment. So 20 points to me, 12 points to the Fair Lady, 8 points to the FC, 6 points to the 206, and we've got a tie for 5th, as both the Jazz and Barchetta are tied with 3 points. Now we move on to race 3. And where so far, my experiment with the Volvo, it's gone pretty well, as we are at the stock car course of Sonoma again. In other words, we're racing on the NASCAR course again. I think the driver who has the most wins around Sonoma, if I remember correctly, is Jeff Gordon. I think he has the most wins around here. Although Sonoma isn't traditionally one of the best tracks on the NASCAR circuit, it is one of those road courses that you know initially was exclusively designed for NASCAR, but then eventually other racing series came along to this part of California and, well, in all honesty, I actually do think they picked a good area to build Sonoma when they built it in the late 80s. I mean, this track has been part of the NASCAR schedule since 1989. And I think it's fair to say that while this course doesn't always provide the most exciting racing, it has produced plenty of worthy winners over the years. And ironically, the most recent of those worthy winners around here has been Shane van Gisbergen, who ironically went on to achieve the weekend sweep here at Sonoma in both the Xfinity and Cup races. And yes, you honestly could argue that Shane van Gisbergen basically is pretty much a cheat code when it comes to road courses, because it just suits his driving style so well. I mean, the guy practically is a cheat code when it comes to road course specialties. Anyway, we will see how we do. So closing in on the Fair Lady once again. I reckon once I do close that gap soon enough, that is when I reckon we're basically going to be duking it out again. I do have a good handling car in spite of the understeer, but I think at this time I should be able to provide myself with enough speed to get to the end of this one with the checkered flag, as long as I continue to mount pressure, as it is now a 3-second gap. So, still got a few more tenths to find, but I think I can find those because of my stronger corner abilities, compared to the Turismo at this point. So 1.7 seconds is now the gap. You have got to go pretty deep on that curb to make the best corner exit. And at this point, we're doing pretty well. And I am closing in on the Fair Lady as the gap is now, and hit a few cones. The understeer kicks in on that corner entry, and it's kicking in again as I run wide. And it looks as though at this point, like, there is going to be a fight before this is all said and done. And by that I mean a fight between myself and the Fair Lady before this is all said and done. I have made a few mistakes here and there, but either way, I'm now just behind the Fair Lady. And hopefully it will not be too long before I managed to pass him. He goes pretty deep on that curb there. That's pretty much a sausage curb from what I can see, with how long that secondary curb is on those right-handers. But now, after 4 laps, I take over the lead for the first time. And it looks as though this is going to be oddly similar to what we had at Motegi, in terms of our fight that happened there, where I was able to fend him off. So, holding the inside line, and it looks as though we are pretty evenly matched again. And at this point, this is going to be a pretty close battle. A battle that definitely looks like it's going down to the wire, the way I see things. And I've gone too wide. And at this time, it looks like the win is going to be mine. But we'll see what happens. Huh, he actually took the lead away from me with a pass on the inside. Okay, this is a proper battle. This is not me fending off the Turismo anymore. This is a case of me actually going door to door with him. And making sure that I manage to outflank him. This definitely looks like it's probably going to be one of those ding-dong battles, if things stay the way they are. Shit, that's a wall. Yeah, you really have got to go deep on the curbs in that first right-hander at the other end of the course in order to really nail it. It's definitely one of those things. You really do have to make sure you don't go too fast into the corner to thread the needle. But at this time, I would say we're doing alright for ourselves, because we're holding on. Alright, 6 laps in, and I lead by 0.7 of a second. And it looks as though we are both going to overlap someone before this is all said and done. So on the brakes and a little bit wide there, although traditionally most NASCAR drivers usually do run wide on that outside curb. And now looks as though I am going to pass the Honda Jazz by overlapping him, and it looks as though Mr. Turismo is going to do the same thing. So we've driven 55 miles now. The understeer still continues to kick in certain places, but thankfully I do manage to hold my racing line. And now I overlap the Fiat as well and set a new best lap time in the process, as the gap is now 1 second to the fair lady behind me. And so our battle continues. I think he did lose a few seconds there, but I don't think it would really be too many to say it was a huge loss of time, but I did manage to clear the back markers quicker than what the Turismo did, and as a result, I have now jumped out with a bigger lead. So he moves in by a 10th, but I think at this point I would say we have a quite minimal chance of losing this, unless I completely lose control on the exit of the carousel, but in all honesty, that's probably not going to happen. He does manage to catch back up to me again, but once again, I will outduel the Turismo Fair Lady Z. By 1.5 seconds. As the Fiat Barcata also just managed to finish. So 30 points to me, 18 points to the Turismo, and the rest of the field is pretty much unchanged at the moment. So it looks as though first, second, third and fourth are all very much going to occupy their positions up until pretty much the end of this championship, is what me thinks. But either way, we're doing a pretty good job. So 3 races in, I have already saved a replay, so let's now move on to our final race of part 1. Because I am doing 3-parters with this and the Dream Car Championship, and we are at Tokyo Reverse. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. You know what? I may need the turbo for this, because of the battle I recently had with the Pagani Zonda race car here in Tokyo last time. I am pretty sure a turbo is going to be needed for this, from what I can see. I'm not prepared to risk it. At least not without some assurance. I think I'll be just fine, but under the circumstances, it's probably best to not take any chances, as I am wheel spinning off the launch. But either way, I figured I would just put this on because I imagine this is where because I would imagine this is probably where the fair lady might outduel me if I don't have a turbo on. And while to some of you that might be an issue, to me, it's basically a case of trying to see if this can be sweeped. Because I know this is one of those courses where the AI are slightly better than me through some corners around this course. Especially the reverse course. which is why I put the turbo on for just this sort of thing. I just wanted to make sure that I at least had a shot before the fair lady blows me out. There are certain courses in this game where the AI are slightly better than the player, but at the same time, I do think about the bigger picture a lot. And whilst I normally wouldn't mind coming home second after building up a big enough lead to at least say that I am a contender for the top spot, I can at least say that this, under the circumstances, is what I consider to be one of those battles where I want to make sure that there's at least something in reserves just in case. And while yes, I have managed to overtake the fair lady, that doesn't mean to say he's not going to get me back. As my throat seems to be fading away again since I am out of water now. But at this point, I would honestly say whoever wins this battle is going to be the one who makes the least mistakes. And that's what will ultimately decide the course of the battle. Because the fair lady is not letting me get away with this. And likewise, I'm making sure to do the same thing with him. And running wide again at the semicircle turn. And just as I would have thought, the fair lady goes down the inside and he passes me. Ordinarily, I would go and get myself some more water, but because this is the last race of part 1... Oh, he is ahead of me by a Satan. I say that because the interval was literally Satan's number. But either way, I know this race is going to be harder than it looks. It'll certainly be one of those cases where I would of course need something in reserve to really mount a challenge to the fair lady. And it seems as though at this point, like, the battle is just going to rage on. The battle, a lot like the war at this point, is very much raging on. Even though the war for the championship, from what I can see, if I do get the clean sweep, it'll pretty much be over probably by the time we get past 7 races, mathematically. So we're both pretty evenly matched. It's hard to say for sure who is going to be the overall winner at the end. But we're definitely trading our fights here because of how close we are on pace. And he closes in again. We still have another 2 laps to go after this one. He is right behind me. As we head through that little flick. And now all that's left is for us to get through the 90-degree left-hander And at this point, it seems like we have got this one pretty much in hand, as long as we don't make any mistakes from here on out. So going above 150 miles an hour into the first hairpin, and it looks as though at this point, like, we are very much waiting for the next dive bomb that I think the Turismo could potentially make. And the gap is now less than a second again. Didn't really need to lift through that left-right flick, but either way, I still manage to somehow put myself in a decent enough position to stay in the battle. And that's a wall. As I would have thought, he repasses me, but I will make sure to pass him back. I've already driven 70 miles in this thing, so I reckon it's probably going to be less than 200 miles that we will have driven in this thing by the time we get to the end of this. And getting a slipstream as I pass him up the inside. We're very much keeping it clean in terms of our battle, which is what we're supposed to do. I figured I had to fit the turbo because if I hadn't, then it would be a very lonely race for me, because I would pretty much be just holding on to a very lonely second. And doesn't look like I am going to overlap anyone this time around, but with this race in the Polyphony Digital Cup, a lot like the Dream Car Championship race I had in the Ford GT, this is very much going to be decided by less than a second. Possibly less than half a second, because of just how evenly matched we are. Because of just how evenly matched we are in so many of these areas. Really got to keep it deep on the inside, and I've run wide again, and that's a wall. Okay, gotta switch back to the hood cam again, so I don't make any more mistakes. And I just had a moment of understeer. Can I beat him on pace? We'll wait and see. I am in his slipstream, so maybe it's possible. Okay, come on, go, 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 go. Yes! Got him. I just got him right at the end. There's no way that would have been possible without the turbo. I beat him fair and square. That's about as close as you can get when it comes to a dogfight. Literally decided by inches. So it is 4 out of 4 to me and my Volvo S60 T5 Sport. And 0 of 4 to the Turismo Fairlady Z S-Tune Concept by GT. Then it's the FC who holds on to 3rd, Peugeot 4th, Fiat 5th, and the Honda Jazz is still in 6th. And there's my Volvo. Okay. Cool and good. And all that took me was an extra 41 minutes to get through those other 3 races. So far, 40 points to me, 24 points to the Turismo Fairlady Z, 16 points to the Mazda RX-7 FC, then it's 12 points to the Peugeot 206, 7 points to the Fiat Barcata, and 5 points to the Honda Jazz. Cool and good. However, I'm now going to call it a day because it is past 3 o'clock, and even though I do have my fan on, it is going to continue getting hotter, so I think this is a good time to call it a day. Until my next video. So, next time on Gran Turismo 4, Polyphony Digital Cup, races 5 through 7.